What is different about my approach to this subject than the 10,862 other books on happiness? The difference is, well, one difference is mine's not written yet. That's an immediate difference, which is in itself an extremely unhappy topic. But there are other differences. One of them is this, and this alone, I promise you, this alone will make you a happier human being. And that is, I start from the belief that it is normal to be unhappy. That is the beginning belief, which some people will disagree with. But I know from all the talks I have given how helpful it has been for people to realize that you don't have to be bubbling all the time. That's not normal. That might be manic. The fact of the matter is, it is normal to have great bouts of sadness, to have a lot of unhappiness. That is par for the course. That is what life entails. Now, if you're always unhappy, or worse, depressed, it is something to certainly look into. But what I really work at, this is the key difference here, what I work at in the book and in my talks is not to make people happy. It is to reduce, and here come the operative words, to reduce gratuitous pain. There is normal amount of pain in life, absolutely. The only way to avoid it is to watch television constantly, which is why I think people do. It's a numbing device, television, and I have a deep antipathy to television. It is normal to experience pain. What I work against is gratuitous pain, where it's just unnecessary. Why are you suffering? Suffering is normal. Dostoevsky put it very directly, to live is to suffer. And that is true. And by the way, to fully live is to suffer even more. If you really want to live, after all, I talk, for example, to singles, especially single men. I have a talk which you may want to give to a single man that you may know. It's called The Case for Marriage. And coming from a single man a married man who was a single man, who totally identifies with where they're coming from, it has some persuasive power. But one of the things that I make clear is that I don't promise you endless happiness through marriage and family, but the question that you really have to confront is, do you want to grow? Do you want to live life fully? And the more fully you live life, the more you will suffer. That's just a fact of life. It's something, if you want marriage and you want children and you want other things in your life, the more you bring into your life, the more pain you will have. That's a fact. It doesn't come painlessly. If people knew that, maybe there would be a lot less marriage to begin with. Maybe people do go into marriage thinking, this is the end of my ills, now I will be happy because he will make me happy. One of the silliest things anyone in the world could ever possibly believe, but nevertheless, or even funnier, well, we're not having a great marriage, so we'll have a kid. Then we'll really be happy, which is perhaps the single stupidest thing a human being could utter. I can't think of a more silly idea in the world than let's have kids, that'll make us happy. Kids bring joy, there is no question. But my argument for kids is not you'll be happier. My argument for kids is you will live life more fully, but it will bring immense amounts of pain. It's, right? Yes, it's one of the statements I make which is least controversial, I must say. People just going, that's the general view. Yeah. You see, one of the joys of speaking is I get to see you, you don't. You just get to see me. And it is, one day, Brent, we have to do it vice versa. We have to record from here to just have all the reactions going, oh, God, is that true? Oh, God, is that true? Pain he doesn't know. But that is critical. People have to understand, I prefer a full life with the pain it'll bring. There's a Talmudic thing about that. Do you want this? Are you prepared for the bee's stings as soon as you want its honey? That's the question. Some people will say, forget it, I don't want honey because I don't want any stings. But it's not true. We do want honey. But honeys don't come without bees. That's just the way it is. The honeys that we want in life come with stings. And that's something that needs to be understood. Life is filled with pain and unhappiness. It's filled with richness and joy and beauty too. But that's the way it is. As I said, however, if you opt for television, if you opt for singlehood, I'm not opposed to someone who does. I'm not going to stand here and say, you're out of it and Jewish life has to accommodate to singles. I deeply believe in that. There's no question. But I think that if you want to live the fullest possible life, do as much as you can. But it will have pain. That is why I began with the statement that life is filled with pain. What I don't think is necessary, obviously, by the term, is unnecessary pain. And here, what I do in the book is essentially as follows. I list the obstacles to happiness as I see it, and when you confront them, you can help reduce the level of unhappiness. I know it, and that's why it's been as well received as it is. I know it works. But the obstacles are fierce. The obstacles to happiness are so overwhelming. I'm only going to give you a handful, because I've given this in 16 90-minute talks. So obviously in 45 minutes you can only get a handful of them. But my only point is to show you how many obstacles there really are. You may know that, but I'll give you even more than you thought. After you hear this, the only question is, how can anybody possibly be happy? Because the obstacles really are fierce. Let me begin with the first in the book, and that is genes, G-E-N-E-S, genetic predispositions. Let's be honest, my friends, and this will be very helpful to some of you. And that is that, look, we do in fact come out of the womb with a predisposition to happiness or unhappiness. Every one of you who has a child knows this. If you have more than one child, you can verify this. Some kids come out, hey, thank you for having me. There are no words of gratitude that would really suffice for me to express to you how wonderful I feel to come into this world. The other 85%, that is just a joke. I don't know what percent it is. But there are many others who come out of the womb and they have one of their digits extended toward the world. I didn't ask to be conceived. Now that I'm conceived, I did not want to be removed from a very, very comfortable place. I am very angry that you made me, and you will see that the rest of my life. That's the other group. And there are those, obviously, who fall in the middle. What is critical to understand here is that we don't come out, as I was taught in college, in one of the truly more misguided notions. We do not come out a tabula rasa, that Latin word for clean slate. Baloney, we come out a very, very rich slate of characteristics. Vladimir Feltzman, whom I hope you will hear, he is wonderful, came out with pianistic abilities. It wasn't just hard work. I worked hard at piano. I can't do a thing. It has nothing to do with it. Of course hard work matters, but the fact of the matter is, you have it or you don't. I was born able to speak. It's hard work, but you could put in all the hard work in the world. You may not speak like this. That's just the way it is. I could do all the hard work in the world. I won't play an instrument. I thought of going into music, and then there was a major obstacle. It's called talent. I didn't have the talent. It was very clear. Thank God I knew it early enough not to bang my head against the wall. There are people born with perfect pitch. I'm lucky if I can carry a tune in any key. That's just the way it is. But that's true for everything. It's true for happiness. But we don't think of it that way. We think we come out even, just totally bland, and we either move towards happiness depending on how we're raised, socioeconomic conditions, but that's baloney. Same children, same home, same parents, same socioeconomic conditions, same school. One's miserable, one's happy. How's this? Two people go through horrible circumstances. One remains happy, one is miserable. Two people go through great circumstances. One remains miserable. There are people who complain in the most wonderful circumstances, and they're usually Jewish. This is a pet peeve of mine. I just thought I'd share with you for a minute. I am convinced that ethnic groups have traits. It would be ridiculous to argue otherwise. Jews have some wonderful traits, like they help each other, and non-Jews recognize that, and it's a great source of admiration. On the other hand, we have some real Lulus, like we kvetch. It is the Professional Kvetchers Association are Jews. And you know when I learned this? I had a friend many, many years ago. I don't even know if you had heard of this, especially on the West Coast, National Airlines. It was up and down the East Coast. I had a friend, she was a flight attendant on National, non-Jewish, but very pro-Jewish. At least she had been, until she was placed as a flight attendant on the New York-Miami run. If you would like to know how to breed anti-Semitism, I know how. You put someone on the New York-Miami run. If any of you could be a flight attendant, had to be, all right? You're forced at gunpoint. You will be a flight attendant for a year. Would you prefer the New York-Miami or the Milwaukee-Des Moines? Okay? Everybody would choose Milwaukee-Des Moines, even though that may not be as exciting as New York and Miami, but you'll live longer. I have another theory. I wish this would prove it. If you could get 100 Jews, 100 Protestants, and 100 Catholics in a hotel, you just gather them, make believe, I don't know, it's a conference on interreligious harmony, so they wouldn't know what the experiment is about. And you feed all of them slightly overripe cantaloupe. That's all. Not terrible food, just slightly overripe. Do you have any question in your mind as to from which tables the biggest complaints would come from? It's not even an issue. Now, I don't like complainers. I must say that is a trait that drives me up the wall, generally speaking, because it is endless what there is to complain about. It is truly endless. It doesn't, well, so now it's the cantaloupe, next, it's the next course, or it's too hot or too cold or too medium or too this. I don't like this type of fish, I want another type. It's endless. People are born, though, that I think is cultural. People, though, really are born. Now, why do I say this? This gets to a very serious part. Let us say, why is this helpful? Why is this helpful? Let us say that you are one of those who's fairly chronically moody / unhappy. It might be very, very helpful for you to realize that, you know what, maybe it's not my wife, husband, child, parent, friends, job. In other words, I would think that if I were always unhappy, or nearly always, it would be a relief to me to know it's not the people around me. It really is just something inside of me. And then A, I don't blame them, and B, I don't blame me. Two things that are so well known to people who are constantly unhappy is to either or both blame themselves and others. But if in fact there is a genetic element or a chemical element, as we now know through psychopharmacology, excuse me, think of how much help you can have for yourself or for another. It's a very important thing to realize that not all unhappiness is psychological, that not all happiness is psychological. I don't know why people are or aren't under the identical circumstances. I think philosophy helps. I think outlook on life helps, and I will talk about that in these other obstacles. But I cannot emphasize this enough. By the way, if you're a parent of a child who's pretty chronically unhappy, this should be a relief. You can't make your child happy. You can make your child miserable. Now, here is one of the ways in which life loads the deck against us. We have much more power to make others miserable than to make them happy. Your children cannot make you happy. They can bring you moments of happiness, but if you're unhappy, a happy child won't make you happy. But if you're happy, an unhappy child will definitely make you unhappy. Children's power to make us unhappy is infinitely greater than to make us happy. Same with a spouse, same with a parent. So the deck is somewhat loaded against us. But don't have this if you are a parent going, where did I go wrong? Where'd you go wrong? Genetically, all right? Fix your DNA. Now, isn't that silly? Of course you can't do that. That's why it's very helpful to know this. It calms you down. I had this, I'll give you one final example. How you get calmed down when you realize what might be natural to you. I've always been tall. And as a boy in yeshiva, I was a giant. First of all, I would have been tallest in a regular school. In a Jewish school, I was absolutely beyond the scale, okay? And at Jewish camp and at Jewish school, we'd have track races, and I always lost. And you know how embarrassing that is to be the very tallest and come in 8th? Right? Kids with much shorter legs than I were winning. And I never, was I lazy? I wondered as a kid, am I just lazy? What's wrong with me? Why can't I do better? Why can't I run fast? Well, the answer only came 2 years ago at the podiatrist's office. I went in for a foot problem. And why else would I go in? I was somewhat redundant. Of course I had a foot problem. And the podiatrist is down there looking at my foot. Within 2 seconds, he looks up and goes, Mr. Prager, you were never on the track team when you were young, were you? I go, no, how do you know? He said, with feet like that, it's amazing you walk right. And it turns out, wouldn't it have been helpful for me to know at 8, 10, or 12 that such flat feet just don't allow you to run fast? Then I would have realized it's not that I don't hustle. It's not that I'm a lazy bum. So too with happiness. If you would understand that may be your constitution, you're just not the happy-go-lucky type. That would calm you down and ironically would make you happier, would calm people around you. That's why I begin with that particular obstacle, and I think it's very helpful.